All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, there's been a little bit of news over the last few days. Unfortunately, regarding Cale Gundy, this is not something I expected us to be talking about when we finished up our podcast recording for Monday's show. I'd never expected us to be talking about this on Wednesday. I thought we were going to be struggling with content. We got a lot of stuff to talk about with Cale Gundy, a lot of different perspectives, a lot of players weighing in on his situation. So we'll talk about that. OU, on a brighter note, made the top two for Jordan Renaud. He's going to make his commitment next month, which is looking good. Malachi Coleman out of Nebraska also put OU in his top 7, and it seems like OU's in a pretty solid spot for him. So we're going to be talking about Cale Gundy, Renaud, and Coleman in this episode. But before we get into it, just want to say we appreciate it. We're almost to 4,900 subscribers. Help us get us there. I think we're like 35 away at this point. Hit the subscribe button. I know over half of you that are watching this right now aren't subscribed. It's easy, free. Hit the button, turn the notification bell. We'll be going live on August 22nd. We'll also be having a Zoom call with our members only. So if you're not a member and you'd like to be on a Zoom call to hang out with us, talk OU football, and anything that you guys want to talk about, be sure to go check out our monthly membership of $4.99. You have to be on the computer to do so. It won't be on the iOS app or the Android app. So go on your computer, log in, join the membership, and it's $4.99 a month. And we'll be bringing a lot of good content for you guys. And, if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, leave us a review, follow the channel, helps us out a lot. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and everything's linked below. And so without further ado, we'll get into it. So this is going to be I'm sure, a very passionate discussion. A lot of people, I'm sure Brandon's in a video challenge might involve someone's opinion on this, asking for that. So Cale Gundy, to summarize it, Sunday night, he released a statement, and the team released a statement that basically Venables has accepted his resignation. More details came out on Monday regarding what kind of went down and some more of the reasoning behind the decision. And some things have transpired, some tweets by his daughter. Players have come out for support. I'm going to quit talking. I want to hear what Brandon has to say, and I'm sure this is going to be quite a long discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a less than ideal situation. It's a shit situation in what was an otherwise flawless offseason, I would say, between the transition between Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables. Everything seems going smoothly. Then you kind of have this huge thing drop, and I think it had the chance to be a mega distraction had Oklahoma tried to retain him, kind of brushed under the rug. I think at the end of the day, Cale Gundy made the right decision by stepping down. There's a couple things that went through my mind when I first read it. First see the news coming out, and at first, you think he read the word off an iPad, and I think we all kind of assume what the word is, and he reads it off the iPad. And then I kind of think, my first initial thought process was he probably read it out loud, just going real fast, read it, kind of realized he fucked up, and then maybe tried to stop, maybe just one time reading it, and that was it. And then Venables later releases a statement that he said it a couple times, and that's, I think, where it gets to the point where, after one time saying there's no choice, but especially dropping the word a couple times at that point, it's not necessarily an accident. I don't think that. Yeah, I think he had to resign by saying the word multiple times, and then speaking on him. I think the number of players coming to his defense shows that this was. I think he made a mistake. There's no doubt, because I don't think that many people, ex-players who served under you for so long, would come to your aid in a situation like this and speak to your character and your integrity if it weren't really there. And I do believe good people can make shitty mistakes, but at the same time, this is not trying to sound insensitive to the subject or apologetic, because I think when you say stuff like that in a place of work, it at the end of the day, it is a very hurtful word to people. And there was no choice for him to resign to avoid the distractions and all of that. And he had to resign. There's no doubt. You can't get away with saying stuff like that in your place of work. Such a hurtful word. It's really unfortunate. It is what it is. It's time to rally behind LaDainian Washington.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just actions have consequences, and I don't think any of us believe that he's a bad person at all. Like you said, all the people that have come to his defense, he's obviously a very great guy to his players, to the people that have ever met him, crossed paths with him. He seems like he's an amazing guy, but you just can't do that kind of stuff. Like Brandon said, like one time, yeah, and it sounds like the players in the current locker room were trying to help him out and like back him up, and they understood it wasn't with malicious intent. But like you said, Brandon, you can't say that word. I mean, one time is too many times, and once you go past that, you're clearly not understanding potentially the gravity of what you're reading, even if it was song lyrics, because that's what's being uh, put out there, is that the player was writing out song lyrics or song lyrics on his iPad. Something else that, like, I don't know, the frustrating situation outside of him leaving, because that does stink, but we do have Washington now to take in the spot in the interim, is on Twitter. You'll see people like trying to call for the player himself to be suspended. Every 18 or 19-year-old has screwed off in class and not been paying full attention to what is going on in front of them. Is that dumb? Yes. So should the player have been doing what he was doing? No. But it's not as big of a deal as a coach saying that in front of an entire room or at all. It's like you said, Brandon, it's a workplace. You can't say that kind of stuff ever in a workplace. If any of us as normal people, because we don't have any real sort of notoriety like Cale Gundy did, if we do that in our workplace, we're canned immediately.
No doubt. And and you can't even say the word in general. Like you can't, like even behind close, it's a word you really shouldn't have in your vocab, even reading it and stuff like that. And I mean, and the consequences are real for it. It's showing here.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think time will pass and people will better understand that it wasn't with malicious intent. It seems like already people understand that, but he just can't be a coach at Oklahoma after doing that. Maybe he'll get another opportunity elsewhere. I mean, we saw Gary Patterson happen to him. He did something just as dumb, and now he's an assistant to the head coach or something like that. Who knows? Down in Texas. So I'm sure at some point, Cale Gundy's experience and the connections he has, and the fact that people understand he's not a bad guy, will get him another job elsewhere. He just won't be at Oklahoma. And also, like, or Brum, you can go first, and you can go, and then we'll hit on what his daughter said, because I know that's something people wanted us to chat about.
Yeah, it's definitely shocking. It caught me off guard. Obviously, I felt like we finally are getting in a groove. Fall practice is going. We're going to be, running at 100% going into this fall practice. Yeah, again, I mean, like you guys said, if one of us said something like that in our workplace, we'd be gone immediately. No one would be outraged on Twitter. If anything, it'd be like, good, he should be gone. And so, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how much money, how famous you are, there are certain things that you're held accountable for, and your actions are one of them, no matter who you are. And it's unfortunate that he made a mistake, after 24 years at Oklahoma, it ends like this. I do think he will eventually, like with almost everything, time helps. And what you can do as far as trying to, like, as an apology and proving that it was truly an accident, and obviously with everyone, all the players coming out and by his side and supporting and all that stuff, we obviously know that he's not a racist, but he made a really poor judgment on this instance. And it's something that I'm sure he will learn from. And I guarantee you he will never make that same mistake again. I just don't know how you say it multiple times without registering, because I can see the word and I know immediately not to even say it once. And I'm not a rocket scientist. So it's, believe it or not, some people might think I am a rocket science, but I'm not. But it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, you know what? Brent Venables made the decision, and we're all in on Brent Venables. And at the end of the day, what his decision we might not totally agree with it. I think it's fair, and I think it's the way you have to do it. Also, I think OU as a university is under the microscope as well, because there is a prior incident, not with the football team, but when we were in school with a fraternity. So you've got that behind you. And I feel like if it would have been a suspension, if something would have gotten out, it would have been a distraction all fall camp, even in the fall season, with people either wanting him to be suspended or he should be fired immediately, or, you know, that whole distraction of the student organizations as well getting involved and all the media press. It's almost just better just to kind of end it there and kind of move on. And, you know, at the end of the day, LaDainian Washington, a lot of players really like him as well. And he's been involved with a lot of recruitments. And I think he's going to be able to hold a lot of the commitments with Jaquez Petaway. You know, Anthony Evans is announcing his commitment later this month. We can talk more about them here in just a bit. But I think LaDainian Washington is a solid coach and someone that has already been involved in recruitment. And I don't think it's going to be a significant downfall. I could see at the end of the day, Cale Gundy maybe eventually coming back to OU after a few years. Maybe somehow involved. I'm not saying the same position because it could very well be LaDainian's as a permanent position, but he very well might be around the university. I think Bob Stoops said that today on the radio, talking about that he will always kind of be a part of the OU family in one way or another. So whether he's on the staff or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, so you guys want to bring up Cat Gundy's tweet? So I'll just read it. Jose, I'll get your input on it. So shortly after this came out, you know, Cat Gundy, Cale's daughter, posted on Twitter. It has since been deleted. And quote is, "Interesting you told your players to keep their mouths shut about what really happened and their heads down. The truth will always come to fruition. It's only a matter of time," end of quote. That's what she posted, and it has since been deleted. What's your takeaway on that one?
I think it was just the daughter coming to her dad's defense. I think if any of our parents were in a position like Cale, with having the public eyes on him really at all times, and he makes this big kind of mistake, you're going to come to your parents' defense because you know they're not that kind of person. And we had other people come to his defense. So it seemed like an emotional tweet. And really the only issue it caused was people that love conspiracies saying that Venables and the rest of the university are conspiring against Cale Gundy to somehow run him out off campus. If Venables didn't want Cale on the staff, Cale wouldn't have been on the staff. There's no reason for this to be an excuse to get him out. It was a mistake, like we've said, that needed to be, and consequences happen. And it's Venables. Like we've seen Venables mention it that there's a high standard. I think that's like one of the sayings, like define the standard. And you can't, just because the coach has been there for a long time and is bled crimson and cream, you can't give him an excuse for doing something like that. He had it gone. But I could see him come back in like a consulting capacity at some point, a few years, probably like head some sort of, inclusion and equity, some sort of organization like that to help, student athletes understand. I don't know if there's that kind of, I know that there's organizations like that on campus already, like you said, from what happened when we were in school with a fraternity, but I'm sure that they'll try to bring him back for something like that with Oklahoma, because, the fans love Cale, ex-players love Cale. It seems like the families of these players love Cale. I think it was Nick Evers' mom came out talking about how much they loved him. Llewellyn's mom came out talking about how much they loved him. So he's not, again, we don't think he's a bad guy. Just poor decisions, bring consequences along. So I don't think Cale or Cat Gundy's tweet really did anything. She was just coming to her dad's defense and rised and gave a reason for conspiracy theorists to hang their hat on something outside of the facts that have been presented to them.
See, I hope you're right, and I kind of see you being at least half right. At least half of her was coming to the defense of her dad, because it's a very emotional situation, as you alluded to, as players have come to his defense, recruits and parents. I'm with you. I don't believe Cale Gundy is a bad human, and I do think his daughter is naturally going to defend him. But to me, the tweet was actually like the most damning thing of this, and the reason behind that is Brent Venables, since he's arrived on campus for years, actually, even before he got to OU, just everything about him, him helping with the soul mission at Clemson, bringing it to Oklahoma. He's been a very high character, high integrity guy. He's been almost like the model citizen to go along with his great ability to coach a football team. The way he handles recruiting, everything about him has been perfect, flawless so far. And this is kind of like that first blemish. And if she's right, and I'm not saying she is, I don't know the situation. I wasn't in the room. If he's right, or if she's right, and he really did try to just sweep it under the rug, because at the end of the day, Cale Gundy is a phenomenal football coach, and OU football is a business. And if you're the boss of this business, you don't want to lose a fantastic employee like Cale Gundy, especially if you think, at the end of the day, this will never come to the light of day if we could just keep our heads down, shut up, as she alluded to in the tweet. So that kind of contradicts everything that we have been led to believe about Venables and still believe about Venables. I'm not sitting here saying he's a bad person. I think he's probably everything that he portrays. But that's kind of like one blemish on that. And I'm gonna pair this in there with it too. I think there's a possibility at first that maybe they did try to just sweep it under the rug. They're like, because Cale Gundy's that guy, you don't want to lose Cale Gundy. However, you can try to initially, and your initial thought could be, let's sweep it under the rug. We don't want to lose Cale Gundy. He's a great recruiter, great coach, this, that, and the other. It'll never come to light of day. Let's let it go. Let's say that was the initial plan. He can change his mind later on that. His conscience could eat at him, be like, what, as great as he is, this isn't right. I gotta run it up the chain of command. And that would back his character integrity that we've seen so far. So I think there's a possibility at first she's not just bullshitting in this tweet, that it was something that was trying to just brush under the rug. And then I think maybe he came around and was like, as much as we don't want to lose him, we can't do this. This is not, it's not right ethically. I mean, because I feel like we've all been in that situation growing up. Like, how many times have we done something that we know we're not supposed to do? And we're probably never going to get caught for it, as a kid, sneaking food or whatever the hell the situation might be. But you just feel so bad about it, you eventually come clean. And I think it's something that I think could have happened, and that's something that the tweet may be talking about.
It very well could be. Another thing that I kind of took it as that tweet was, interesting. You told your players to keep their mouths shut and, about what really happened. And I felt like, could that have been about with the additional statement from Brent Venables in the public eye explaining more and more what it is, letting more people in on what actually happened. And maybe now people are spinning it, different, every which way. I mean, I've seen people on Twitter saying, he's a racist, all the way to he did nothing wrong. And then people in the middle, like, I feel like we're in the middle. And maybe it's more of on that line of, well, you told the players not to be telling the media anything, but here you are, telling people about what happened. But at the same time, as a head coach and of one of the most prestigious football programs in the country, you can't just have this report come out and then never elaborate on it. I mean, you have to speak on it. There's no way you can't just, say nothing on it. So I don't know. I take it with a grain of salt. I think she's just coming to her dad's defense on things. You see kids that are, I don't know exactly how old she is. I don't know if she's 18, 21, 22. I don't know how old she is, but she's young, and she probably was pretty emotional that, they have heavy OU ties and they're diehard Sooner fans. And after 24 years, one instance got him fired. So I don't know, I take it with a grain of salt. She is a kid at the end of the day, but there could be more to it. I don't know. You're muted.
Yeah, muted.
We pointed out probably the biggest thing with this, and why it wasn't just a suspension or like an indefinite suspension or suspension for X amount of games, is that Oklahoma as a university has been under scrutiny for things similar to this, not just with what happened with the fraternity, what was it now, 8 years ago, but I believe it was like as we were graduating, something happened with a professor in a very similar situation with the previous president before Joseph Haraz. So, like, obviously, the university is going to do everything in its power to make sure that its image is starting to recover from these sorts of situations. And if, like we've said multiple times, that's not a word that should ever be used by anyone. And if it's used by one of probably the most influential people on campus, you definitely can't let it happen, because then it just becomes a big problem, not just with the image, but like now people are thinking it's okay, and it's not, like we've said.
You brought up, I totally forgot that incident. That was with, I think, Gallagly, James Gallagly or something like that. It was after Boren, before Haraz. I think it's Gallagly. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, I mean, you can't, if you're going to try to set a precedent, and the football team is one of the most, is the most influential thing about your university. There are plenty of students that come to Oklahoma because of the football program, because you grew up a Sooner fan. You might have been 3 states away, but you're like, you know what? I love Oklahoma football. And there's plenty of people out there that just love OU football and have never been to Norman. And you're trying to send a message, and it's just something you have to do at the end of the day. It's what your standard is, and you have a very high standard for your players. You have to have a very high standard for your coaches and staff at the same time. You can't have it one way and not the other way, because your players are going to start questioning you, like, well, why did he get away? It's just like letting the star quarterback do whatever they want, but you don't let the non-scholarship players get away with that. Everyone's got to be the same.
Yep.
So, that wasn't the most fun thing to talk about, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. OU's got to move on. We can talk a little bit. I really think that this transition from Gundy to Washington is going to go smoothly. You've seen some videos and some reports that, the players really like him. They're practicing well. He's been involved with some recruitment with wide receivers. I see, like Anthony Evans, I could see a few other people get involved, not only Washington, maybe like a Todd Bates, maybe, some really strong recruiters, because Cale Gundy was that. Petaway is the one I'm most concerned about, but it seems like Petaway is bought into the program. And as of right now, he seems to be locked in. So, and at the end of the day, if OU goes out this fall and the wide receivers, Marvin Mims, Theo Weiss, Drake Stoops, Farouk, they all tear it up, it's going to all go by the wayside, and all these players that are currently committed at wide receiver position will move on and will be bought in. That, at the end of the day, production fixes everything.
I agree. I mean, I think Petaway is the first person that came to my mind too. Whenever the news dropped the next morning, he was tweeting some stuff that was a little bit scary if you're an OU fan. He tweeted like bro with like 85 dots, and just, like you could tell he was clearly upset with Cale Gundy resigning, because Cale Gundy is a very good football coach, very good recruiter, as you alluded to. But I mean, I agree. I think if OU has a good season 2023 at that receiver position, I think LaDainian Washington is all capable of coaching. I don't envision we lose Petaway or Keon Brown, and I don't think this is going to impact our chances with Anthony Evans too much. But I mean, it's one to watch for sure. Jaquez Petaway is the one that I'm going to be watching closely and hoping that he does retain his commitment to OU.
It doesn't seem like recruiting will be impacted too much this year. And I think we can give credit to Venable's form of recruiting. Don't commit unless you're 100% committed to the program. And while, yes, we've said it multiple times on the show, since the inception of this show, kids are going to commit to their position coach. Luckily, Washington is young. He's played the position. He played it at the pro level. He's been involved in recruiting. No, he hasn't ever been able to do like at-home visits, but yes, he's able to now as the interim wide receivers coach. It'll be interesting to see if he'll get to keep the job after the season. I would not expect anyone to be taking over that position as a permanent wide receivers coach until after the season. but I know a lot of people are hoping that Malcolm Kelly comes back and coaches at Oklahoma. I mean, we'll see. It's gonna depend. Like, you can't take the job away from Washington if he does a good job this year, even if Malcolm is an alum here.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like anything in the workplace and at your regular job. If your boss quits and they have no one else to fill in, they give you the opportunity to prove that you are good enough to do it. And as long as you do it and you produce, you're going to have the job. And my last thought about this whole deal, do you remember a few months ago when OU's recruiting was not great and the wide receiver position lost Ashton Cozart and people were calling for Cale Gundy's job? I mean, remember that at one point, some people wanted him gone before, and now people are really upset that he is gone. It just goes to show how important he really was to this football program. So it is what it is, and we'll move on, but it's a big loss. It's going to be all right, but some people were calling for his job already. So anyway, so we'll move on. So some recruiting, not at the wide receiver position. OU made the top 2 for Jordan Renaud on Monday. He's from Tyler, Texas. He's a 6'3", 245-pound defensive lineman, 2023 4-star, number 86 overall, and number 8 defensive lineman in the class. So he's a top 10 defensive lineman. He has announced that it's a top 2 between Alabama and Oklahoma. He has set his commitment date for September 19th. Pretty much, he's a terrific talent. He was originally supposed to visit at Alabama for the Texas A&M Alabama game, I believe October 8th. It appears that visit might not happen because his commitment might be in favor of Oklahoma on September 19th. It seems like OU is in a great spot. If he wasn't so sure about Oklahoma, I think he wouldn't have made his announcement for September 19th and would have taken his visit to Alabama. I believe he's planning to come up for a game in September to Oklahoma. OU's coming off a tremendous weekend at the last weekend of July of the Party in the Palace. It seems like OU, with them getting this commitment pushed up, a bunch of lock emojis came out. Seems like Renaud could be one of those, and someone that's moving in the right spot. Brandon, what do you think?
Blow the planes up. I mean, I feel like he's one of the 5 locks that came out from the last barbecue at the end of July. So far we have Colton Vasek confirmed as one. Jacoby Johnson announces Saturday or something. Yeah, Saturday. I think he'll be one. And I think we have very good reason to believe Jordan Renaud's going to be one. And as a player, you're getting a damn good one. He's a top 100 guy. I think he's 86 overall. He's a top 10 defensive lineman. He's got great size. He's 6'3", 245. You look at his numbers. 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I think he's going to be very, very big with that size and frame in the run game. And his numbers in high school kind of showed that. The 2 sacks is pretty standard, I would say, for a defensive tackle. But 8 tackles for loss, I mean, that's pretty good. He's making plays in the backfield and running backs. He got a pick on the season, 3 pass breakups. Very, very good instinctual football player. And I think we've talked about it on multiple lives. When you look at that position, that's the defensive line in general, not just like inside and outside, just the defensive line. It's the deepest part of our recruiting class. It seems to get deeper. If you can land a Renaud and if you get DJ Hicks down the road, I know we're all homers and we're a little bit biased, but I don't believe that there will be a better defensive line class in the entire 2023 recruiting cycle for anybody in the country. I think OU will have the top defensive line recruiting class in the 23 cycle.
I'm not going to say the top, but it's definitely going to be one of the best in this recruiting cycle. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that that Renaud will be choosing Oklahoma. Like Brum said, it's a good sign that he moved up his commitment date to middle of September rather than waiting till when he was supposed to be taking his visit in October with Alabama. Like Brandon said, we're still looking for all those locks, and we know that Vasek was one of them. Pretty confident that Jacoby is one of them. Confident that Makari is going to be one of them at the end of this month. This guy's the 4th. And then if we're just looking at who was visiting, who I believe that is who the locks are referring to. DJ Hicks it seems to be one of them. And if anyone was on Brandon Drumm's Twitter space yesterday, Derek LeBlanc was very adamant about the fact that DJ was coming to Oklahoma with him. So, well, that one is, clearly still a wait and see. His commitment as of now is still expected to be in January. Hopefully he gets moved up. We'll keep following and updating you guys with DJ, but this will definitely be one of the best defensive line classes in the country, probably one of the best defensive line classes in Oklahoma history. And it's definitely going to put Oklahoma in a position to be SEC ready when that move is made, because the bigger we are, the better we're going to be prepared for going up against those big boys in the SEC.
For sure. I mean, I agree with both what you guys said. Renaud is obviously a top 10 defensive lineman. And honestly, with the previous staff, getting one top 10 defensive lineman is a dream. And then the potential of with DJ Hicks as being the number one. And then you can't forget that LeBlanc is 13. He very well could be top 10 by the end of the season if he puts together a solid season. I think also Rivals has him ranked way low. I think that's part of the reason why he's a lower 4-star, like a 101 composite. Once Rivals gets that rating fixed, he's going to be even higher. Same with PJ Adewale. I think he's going to be even higher once Rivals gets their recruiting ranks updated. Obviously, coming off the visit, moving up your commitment date earlier than what you were supposed to visit Alabama for. As Drum alluded to, his family wanted him, Renaud's family wants him at Oklahoma. He was kind of the one driving the whole Alabama deal. And for the most part, typically what mom wants, mom gets in this scenario. And it sounds like mom has won out potentially. And, Tyler, Texas is a lot closer to Norman than it is to Tuscaloosa. His family's going to be able to come up and see him and play. And then also OU plays, obviously, will be playing A&M, Texas, and Louisiana, or LSU. It'll be close for them to go and see games. So I feel pretty good. This recruiting class is rolling. You got to have Renaud in order to be competing for a top 3 class, and you got to have DJ Hicks if you want 1 or 2 in the recruiting class as well. So we'll see. Feel pretty good about him. You guys have any thoughts before we move on to the final topic of discussion?
I think he was leaning towards Alabama whenever we had Drum on. So it's just we brought to you guys the change of this recruiting cycle through our show only. So pretty much all you need to do is watch our show and not listen to anybody else, and you'll be good.
That's true. And it actually brings up a good point. Drum said whoever gets the final visit most likely will be the landing spot. Well, he's not planning to visit Alabama before October 8th, but that probably isn't going to happen anymore. The final visit was July 29th. He's got his football season started. He's not going to have as much free time.
Watch Two Plane Sports is what we're getting
to. Watch Two Plane Sports. So hit the subscribe button and join the membership if you want more content as well. A shameless plug. I don't care. I gotta say it. So we'll move on to the final topic is Malachi Coleman. I think we actually got asked about Coleman by someone in the last week or so. Malachi Coleman, he's a 6'5", 190-pound 4-star in the 2023 class, number 89 overall, and number 7 athlete in the class. He plays a wide receiver, but he can also play along the defensive, as a linebacker. He put together a very solid season last year. And something that was interesting, he put his top 7 out, Nebraska, Ole Miss, USC, Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Oregon, I believe. I believe those are his 7, and maybe USC's involved. I might have said too many. But anyway, what's interesting is he is being recruited into different positions, I think 4 different positions by the top 7 programs. So OU is the only school that likes him as a tight end. Michigan likes him as an edge rusher. The Ole Miss, Nebraska, and Georgia all like him as a wide receiver. USC likes him as an outside linebacker, and the Oregon Ducks will let him choose wherever he wants to play. So I think that's interesting that you're that good that so many different top programs want you at different positions. And then even Oregon giving you the option to choose whatever you want. I think that's interesting, but from what it kind of sounds like, he's kind of still deciding what he wants to do at the next level as far as what position he wants to play. But he also wants to see how the product on the field is. I mean, remember, as much as we don't like USC, that's a new coaching staff out there, or Nebraska on the hot seat. Scott Frost, he has to win this season in order to probably keep his job. If they don't play well, they'll probably lose out on Coleman. Oregon is a brand new coaching staff. Nebraska went through some changes this offseason. Oklahoma went through changes this offseason. Georgia and Ole Miss are kind of the two constants as far as that goes. And so there's been a lot of changes. So he's going to be waiting to see who is going to be performing well. I know he's got some officials lined up. I think he's working to schedule his official with Oklahoma. I feel good. I wouldn't say he's a lock for this class. Jose, what do you think?
I agree. I don't think he's a lock quite yet for this class. It's kind of all riding on Lebby and Braden Willis's shoulders. If Lebby puts out a good offense and Braden Willis has a good season, then I think we have a very good chance to lock in Malachi Coleman. But I mean, there's still a lot of factors left. It seems like he really wants to stay near home, which if that's the Nebraska needs to win, at least make it to a bowl game. Don't be the best 3-9 team in the country again. If USC looks okay, maybe he'll entertain that a little bit more. Like you said, the two teams that seem to have the most stability are in his top 7 are Ole Miss and Georgia. Georgia has I would say a boatload of talent at the tight end position with I think his name is Brock Bowers, and then Eric Gilbert just transferred in there this last offseason. So they've got two pretty good and young players there. So if those guys don't produce, I don't see why Malachi would go there, because they were extremely talented coming out of high school. And if they want him, if those guys don't succeed, why would he, even if he doesn't play tight end at Georgia? I think that's what's interesting, is how many positions he's getting recruited at. Because if he just at one point decides through his high school season that he is going to play defensive end or outside linebacker, that eliminates Oklahoma immediately. And it's not because Oklahoma's not good or Braden Willis isn't performing. It's because he just doesn't want to play that position, which is fine. But that's what is so intriguing about this kid's recruitment, is there's not one spot that everyone agrees he's the best at. It seems like all the schools see him being impactful at different positions, which makes it, his recruitment a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. So I hope he wants to play tight end really bad, because you guys know how I like to play these numbers games and things like that, and I like to bring up stats on the show. But the one that jumps off the page at you with Malachi Coleman, if you look at it all, he had 561 receiving yards last year and 10 receiving touchdowns, which, you think, okay, that's a pretty good high school season, but it's nothing that's like insane. It's not Jaquez Petaway numbers, stuff like that. The dude did it on 17 catches, caught 17 passes for 561 yards and 10 touchdowns. That comes to a 33 yard per reception, and only 7 of the balls that he caught last season weren't housed. So, I mean, that's doing a lot with a very little sample size there. That just speaks to his athleticism. Not only that, but I mean, with 7 different schools wanting him all over the field. And then defensively, he had almost 8 sacks last year, about 60 tackles, 3 or 4 forced fumbles. 6'5", he's listed at 190. I think by the time he gets to any college campus, he'll be playing north of 200. Just a freaking athletics. That's a specimen of an athlete right there. And he's another top 100 player. If you want to talk about getting to the number 1 recruiting class, it's another huge get if we're able to reel him in at some point. But 33 yards per catch and only 7 passes that he caught last year were not touchdowns. That's ridiculous.
That's actually a really good stat. I didn't even look at exactly what his how many catches he had. That's actually really kind of insane to think about that he had that. Yeah, so I think OU's in a pretty good spot. It'll be interesting to see if OU gets an official visit. Obviously, if you put out a top 7, he only gets 5 officials. So hopefully Oklahoma gets one. I believe they will, probably in September, since his decision's mid-October, I think October 15th. So it'll be something to watch. It could be somewhat similar to the Micah T situation, where Micah decided that he didn't want to be a defensive back and he chose to be a wide receiver, and he went to Arkansas because of that. And at the end of the day, we're going to be full along that edge player, edge position, and the wide receiver would potentially having already 3 guys committed. Could he be a take no matter what? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he comes to Oklahoma and says, well, look, I really want to play for you, but I got to be a wide receiver. Maybe give him the option. I mean, he's that good and that much of a specimen that he might be able to convince them.
I would hope if he does commit to Oklahoma, that would mean he wants to play offense. I'd hope the coaches give him an opportunity wide receiver, because after Brandon just read those stats, it's kind of scary thinking like, this dude's already very athletic. He's huge. He would be, awesome to have on the outside. Playing tight end, he's going to need to pack on some pounds, get easy north of 200, maybe get, close to 230. But while playing in college, how much would that affect how well he moves? And we know Schmitty will do what he needs to do, and he'll put him in the best position to succeed and be fast and be big. But at some point, 40 pounds is going to make a difference in your movement. And he might just be kind of a unique specimen. Not to say he's going to be Calvin Johnson, but he's kind of Megatron-esque with his size. And if he can move really well at that size, there's no reason to force him to pack on 30, 40 pounds if he can just be like 210 and be a really good, big wideout.
That's very true. It's going to be interesting to see. I feel like he's good enough. He could be a take no matter what, but obviously OU's got scholarship numbers and limitations, and maybe they won't be able to take him no matter what. But I hope OU does well. If OU puts together, they start out 4-0, 5-0, they beat up on Nebraska, maybe USC stumbles, I feel pretty good if Nebraska and USC start to kind of fall apart, because I think OU, USC, and Nebraska are his top 3 in my opinion. And if both those programs lose a few games early, OU puts together a solid start, could end up going in Oklahoma's way.
Real quick, this is kind of random, but I was looking at betting lines for total wins in college football. Oklahoma's at 8.5. I feel like that's an easy over. Like what?
Hammer the over, boys. Hammer the over.
8? Well, from what sports book?
FanDuel.
Seriously?
Most sports books have them. Yeah. So the only reason I checked is because I saw an RJ Young clip on Twitter, and on Fox's sportsbook, it's also at 8.5. Maybe it might be 9 somewhere else, but if you get an 8.5 and you're in a state where you can bet.
Did you get it on the over since you're in a state that you can bet?
Not yet, but I'm about to deposit some funds later.
8.5. That's actually, I expected the line to be 9.5.
If it's still 8.5 by the time I get to Phoenix to visit you, I'm putting money on it too.
Dude, 8.5 seems low. Like I understand we have some pretty hard games. Texas is always difficult. We're going to Nebraska. There's good teams in the Big 12, but we've all agreed. Worst case scenario, Oklahoma's probably 9-3. That's over 8.5. I think we're probably going to be 10-2. Best case scenario, 11-1. We're not going under 8. We're not losing. We're not losing 4 games. I don't think that's possible.
That seems like free money if you ask me. But I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not experts, so don't follow us. But that's insane. So anyway, we might have to kind of do some sort of betting lines as football goes in our pregame show. We'll have to do some lines and things like that, betting lines. Any
sports book out there, you can always sponsor the show.
True, very true. Barstool Sportsbook, hit us up. So anyway, but pretty good show. Some unfortunate things to talk about. Overall, Oklahoma's going to be fine. You got to buy into the program. One person, remember, is not bigger than the program. They don't make the program, make or break it. At the end of the day, the program is bigger. So, Brandon, you have an individual challenge for everyone?
I'm going to defer it to you since you said what it was going to be at the beginning. So go ahead, take it away.
I just assumed, but let us know what you think about the whole Cale Gundy situation, and what you think about Jordan Renaud and Malachi Coleman. But I'm sure a lot of people will have differing opinions on the Cale Gundy situation. Just keep it civil. That's all I ask. Civil and kind. You know, you can be professional and not be ridiculous.
Just don't be a dickhead. I mean, hose hit it right there.
Definitely. So let us know what you think. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell, like the video. Find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything's linked below, Apple or Spotify. If you're listening to us on there, follow the channel, leave us a review. That's linked below as well. Join our monthly membership of $4.99 a month. We're going to be doing a monthly Zoom call with our members, and that will be on August 22nd. We will also be going live for everyone else that isn't a member that night as well. And so be sure to turn that notification bell, and we will catch you guys on Friday.